to trial consultant Richard Gabriel to discuss some of the takeaways. Richard, good to have you. I wonder what your view is and your reading of how the jury would read that moment earlier today when Cohen admitted some uncertainty about a phone call he testified prior in the week in which he initially said he informed Trump that the payment had been made, now expressing under cross-examination doubts about his recollection of that phone call. Is that significant in your view?
Well, it can be, but the truth is that either this jury is going to sit there and say, okay, I don't believe Michael Cohen, he's a big liar. Obviously, the defense has been making a very strong point about that. But the truth is that we're this far into the trial. Most of this is a document case, Jim. So a lot of this has already been put in, and the jury has a lot of evidence about the payment being made. Whether there's a conversation that's been made here or there is kind of immaterial. And even though we've focused so much on Cohen's testimony, I think a lot of times the jury can say, I'm not sure how relevant whether he's a vengeful liar is or not, because we have so many documents that do this connection here.
Understood. I spoke to a lawyer earlier in the day who, to your point about documents, said that the prosecution has yet to prove an essential element, which is that Trump not only knew about the payments, and even if his intent was to hide this from the election, but that he did not have, or they have not proven that he had specific involvement in categorizing those payments as legal expenses necessary to prove part of the prosecution's case here, that it was in effect to violate federal campaign laws. Do you agree that the prosecution has yet to establish that?
Well, they may have not established a direct connection on that. But if you look back over the testimony over the last few weeks, what they are saying is Trump is a micromanager. He knows everything. He sees everything. He's looking through every document that's being here. So they're showing that there's a circumstantial evidence that he has knowledge and he has very direct sort of involvement in how these payments are being made.
Clearly, the prosecution was aware of Cohen's credibility problems prior to his testimony. They called a lot of witnesses before him to lay out the case so that they could argue the case did not rise or fall with Cohen's testimony here. But it seems like the defense has scored some points here, struck some blows on redirect. That is, of course, the prosecution's chance to speak to the witness again. What do they need to do, in your view?
Well, I'm not sure they need to do a whole lot. I think they need to reestablish just a few basic thematic points, which is that obviously Donald Trump knew everything, was involved in everything, clearly had spoken to him, and also had signed checks and had seen documents related to the payment of this, and thematically just kind of. The thing that's interesting about his testimony overall is that it also creates this sort of culture of Trump. It's an insight into sort of the whole thing behind the campaign and how he's involved in everything and what they are trying to do with his campaign. So I think just establishing a few of these main thematic points is really what the prosecution needs to do, and then move on and close their case.
Before we go, I've been asking every lawyer this, and I'm not going to hold you to it, but given where we are and that we might very well have this case wrapped up perhaps beginning in the next week, and you get into closing arguments and then deliberation, where do you think it ends up? Conviction or no conviction?
I never like to do the crystal ball forecast because you never know with a jury.
Sure.
We have a very smart jury. I think a lot of times, I think the prosecution has made a very reasonable, very comprehensive laying in of the evidence there. Whether they think, and I think what really this comes down to, Jim, is where the jurors started in the case. In other words, whether they believe that this is really fundamentally election tampering, or whether they think this is just politics, whether they think there's really an intent there, or whether they think there's just sort of this fundamental, oh, he's just trying to further his political career, and it's just politics as usual. So I think that's where it is. Whether they get one juror or not really has to do with the personality and how well these jurors get along in deliberation. That's going to predict the outcome.
No question. Richard Gabriel, thanks so much. When we do come back, a severe weather